From the moment you entered this world, heaven already knew your purpose. You weren't just born, you were sent. You've always felt it deep in your soul, haven't you? That silent pull towards something higher, that whisper in your heart saying, "You are not like the rest." That's because you carry something sacred, God's light. It's not visible to human eyes, but heaven and darkness both recognize it. You were chosen to embody the very essence of divine illumination in a world drowning in shadows. Every chosen one feels this calling differently. For some, it manifests as intense empathy, the ability to feel others' pain as if it were their own. For others, it's a burning conviction to do what's right, even when it costs them everything. That's not weakness, it's divine strength wearing the disguise of human tenderness. And perhaps that's why your journey has been heavy, because carrying the light means bearing responsibility for hope itself. When God's light resides in you, it reshapes your path. People drift away, doors close, and isolation becomes your companion. But understand this, isolation is not abandonment, it's transformation. God isolates his chosen so they can learn to burn brightly without external validation. You are not being punished, you are being purified. Take a deep breath right now. Feel that stillness within you, that's where heaven speaks. God whispers, "I place my light in you so that others could find me through you." That is your holy assignment. Your very existence is a sermon, a living testimony of divine grace. Sparkle's call to action. Before you continue, pause and reflect. Have you ever felt the weight of divine purpose in your life? Comment below with, "I carry the light," if you felt God's fire moving within you. Let others see that they are not alone. And don't forget to like this video and subscribe to Mirror of the Soul for more prophetic revelations that speak directly to your spirit. One of the hardest truths to accept as a chosen one is this: the moment heaven marks you, the world misunderstands you. People will envy your peace, question your motives, and walk away from you without explanation. But remember, rejection is God's redirection. Every door that closed was heaven's way of saying, "That place cannot hold your light." It's easy to think you're cursed when you're constantly misunderstood. But what if that confusion is a sign that you're carrying something the world cannot interpret? Light exposes what darkness wants to hide. So when you walk into a room, energies shift. Spirits react. The atmosphere trembles not because of you, but because of who walks with you. That's why your presence feels heavy to those still living in spiritual blindness. Look at the life of Jesus, the ultimate chosen one. Even he was rejected, mocked, betrayed, and crucified by the very people he came to save. Yet through that pain, light triumphed over darkness. Your story mirrors his in fragments. Every betrayal becomes a resurrection. Every heartbreak becomes a revelation. You carry his pattern within your path. The world teaches that rejection breaks you, but God teaches that rejection builds you. Each person who walked away created space for your divine assignment to unfold. What they couldn't see was that God was separating you so you could shine without compromise. You weren't created to fit in, you were created to stand out. To carry God's light is to carry his presence, and that's no small thing. It means that within your spirit burns the same energy that spoke galaxies into being. That's why you often feel life more intensely, joy feels divine, but pain feels almost unbearable. You are wired differently because heaven wired you with purpose. God placed sensitivity in you not to break you, but to make you a vessel that feels deeply and loves divinely. When you carry divine light, spiritual warfare becomes personal. The enemy recognizes what you carry long before you do. You may wonder why things seem to go wrong the moment you decide to do right. It's because darkness always resists illumination. Every chosen one experiences this. Sudden confusion, emotional heaviness, unexplained fatigue, or people turning cold without cause. But these are not coincidences. They are confirmations that your light is expanding, and resistance means you are on holy ground. Even Moses, when he descended from Mount Sinai after being in God's presence, had a face that shone so brightly others couldn't even look at him. Exodus 34:29. That's symbolic of what's happening to you spiritually. God's glory reflects through your aura, your energy, your actions, even your silence carries weight. But here's the truth many forget. Carrying God's light doesn't make you superior, it makes you responsible. You're called to love when others hate, to forgive when others condemn, to stay pure when the world grows corrupt. The higher your calling, the greater your accountability. Heaven trusts you because your heart is teachable. There's something sacred about being alone with God. Many chosen ones mistake their isolation as punishment, but it's actually divine refinement. When God calls you higher, He often calls you away from noise, distractions, and familiar places. That's because the light within you needs space to grow, silence becomes your sanctuary, and solitude becomes your training ground. In those seasons where no one seems to understand you, where friends disappear and prayers seem unanswered, God is sculpting your soul. He is burning away everything that cannot go with you into your next chapter. Think of a candle. Before it can shine, the wick must first be consumed by fire. That's what isolation does. It consumes your old self so your true essence, your divine light, can emerge brighter. Elijah the prophet experienced this. After performing miracles, he fled into the wilderness, feeling abandoned and afraid. But it was there, in the quietness of a cave, that he heard God's still small voice. Sometimes, God hides you not because He's forgotten you, but because He's preparing to reveal you at the right time. The hidden seasons are holy. So if you feel unseen right now, take heart. You're not being ignored, you're being incubated. Heaven is strengthening your spirit, sharpening your discernment, and deepening your roots. When your light finally emerges, it won't flicker, it will blaze. When you truly walk in God's light, you begin to see things for what they are, not what they pretend to be. The veil lifts. You discern truth in people's words, purity in their intentions, and deception in their smiles. That's the gift and the burden of divine illumination. Light reveals, and revelation is never comfortable. Sometimes your presence alone convicts others. You don't have to speak. Your spirit speaks louder than words. That's why some people avoid you, not because you've done something wrong, but because your light exposes their hidden shadows. The enemy trembles at those who carry divine truth without fear. But remember, chosen one light doesn't only expose, it also awakens. There are people whose spirits will come alive just by being near you. Your faith, your resilience, your love, these qualities remind others of the God they've forgotten. You are not just a believer. You are a mirror of heaven's heart reflecting God's grace in human form. And though it may feel lonely, every soul you inspire becomes a spark in God's great tapestry of light. That's how revival begins, not through crowds, but through one illuminated soul who dares to keep shining in darkness. Before a diamond shines, it must first endure pressure. Before gold gleams, it must pass through fire. And before a chosen one radiates divine light, they must walk through seasons of testing. The fire you've been through was never meant to destroy you. It was meant to define you. God uses trials to refine His vessels of light until they reflect His image more clearly. Think about it, the pain that once broke you has now birthed a deeper compassion in your spirit. You forgive faster, love deeper, and speak softer because you've met God in the flames. This is spiritual alchemy, turning suffering into strength and wounds into wisdom. Every heartbreak was a holy classroom. Every disappointment was divine sculpting. The fire purified your motives, burned away pride, and strengthened your faith. The Bible says in Zechariah 13:9, I will bring that group through the fire and make them pure. I will refine them like silver and test them like gold. You, chosen one, are part of that group. You've walked through the furnace and survived. Not only that, you came out glowing. Your glow isn't external, it's spiritual. It's that peace that can't be explained, that quiet confidence that radiates from your soul. You no longer need to prove your worth, you embody it. That's the miracle of God's refining process. You lost much, but you gained your light. Every chosen one carries invisible scars. Behind the calm smile and peaceful presence lies a battlefield the world cannot see. You fought wars in silence, emotional storms, spiritual attacks, and nights when faith felt like a flickering candle in a hurricane. Yet here you are still shining. That's not luck. That's divine endurance. Spiritual awakening is not always beautiful. Sometimes it's brutal. It's waking up to truth that others ignore. It's feeling deeply in a world that numbs itself with distractions. And it's carrying light so powerful that darkness constantly tests your resilience. Have you ever wondered why your spiritual battles intensify the moment you choose peace? It's because light provokes resistance. Ephesians 6:12 reminds us that we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against spiritual wickedness in high places. You're not just dealing with life, you're contending with forces that fear your awakening. The enemy knows that once you fully realize who you are, his influence over your destiny ends. That's why warfare increases before breakthrough. The greatest paradox of carrying God's light is this: the more you surrender, the brighter you shine. The ego dims the spirit, but humility amplifies it. When you finally stop fighting for control and start trusting God completely, something shifts. Your energy becomes peaceful, your words become healing, and your presence begins to carry a quiet, unshakable power. Surrender isn't giving up, it's giving in to divine flow. It's letting go of your limited plans so God's infinite design can unfold. Every time you release what was never meant for you, heaven fills that space with something sacred. This is why God allows certain things to fall apart, not to punish you, but to make room for glory. Look at Jesus in Gethsemane. Even the Son of God wrestled with surrender. He prayed, "Not my will, but yours be done." In that moment, divine light conquered human fear. The same happens within you every time you choose faith over control, trust over fear, and love over resentment. When you surrender, your aura changes. People feel safe around you because you radiate divine peace. You stop chasing outcomes and start attracting purpose. You move in rhythm with heaven. You become a vessel, not forcing but flowing. That's true spiritual maturity. If you've ever felt targeted for no reason, it's because darkness fears what you carry. You don't have to be perfect, powerful, or famous, just awakened. The enemy doesn't attack what isn't a threat. The reason your life has been harder than most is because your calling carries eternal weight. You're not ordinary, you're an instrument of divine disruption. Satan's kingdom thrives in confusion, fear, and ignorance. But your light dismantles all three. Every time you speak truth, you weaken deception. Every time you choose forgiveness, you break generational chains. And every time you rise after being knocked down, you testify of God's victory. That's why spiritual attacks target your peace, your mind, and your confidence, because those are the gateways of light. But understand this, chosen one, the enemy's attacks are confirmation, not condemnation. The pressure you feel is proof of your potential. God allows resistance so that your light strengthens in response. Like a muscle under strain, faith grows when tested. So don't fear the fight. Let it sharpen your discernment and ignite your power. You were never meant to live in fear. The same spirit that raised Christ from the dead dwells in you, Romans 8:11. That means no weapon formed against you can prosper. Your light is heaven's fingerprint, untouchable, unstoppable, undeniable. Even in weakness, you are winning. Every chosen one eventually reaches a sacred turning point, the moment they realize their light isn't just for survival, it's for service. God didn't fill you with light so you could hide it. He called you to illuminate others. Your pain birthed compassion. Your endurance birthed wisdom. And your transformation birthed purpose. Have you ever noticed how your story inspires others even when you're not trying? That's not coincidence, that's ministry. Your life itself is a message, and your growth is the sermon. Each trial taught you something the world needs. God doesn't waste suffering. He recycles it into strength. Every healed wound becomes a lamp for someone still walking in darkness. Purpose begins where comfort ends. You're being called to step into your divine assignment, maybe through your words, your art, your kindness, or your leadership. However it manifests, know this: heaven has equipped you. What you think disqualifies you actually qualifies you. The broken pieces of your past are the very tools God will use to build your destiny. Your purpose won't always make sense. It will stretch your faith, test your courage, and demand your surrender. But when you walk in it, everything aligns, doors open, people appear, and divine timing unfolds like a sunrise. That's when you'll understand. You were never waiting for purpose, purpose was waiting for you. The light of God within you doesn't just shine, it heals. Every time you choose love over bitterness, peace over anger, and faith over fear, healing flows through you. Some people will encounter you and feel calmer without knowing why. That's because divine energy moves through your spirit like medicine for the soul. Your presence becomes a sanctuary, a place where broken hearts remember what wholeness feels like. You might not realize it, but your compassion carries resurrection power. Just as Jesus healed through touch and intention, your words and empathy become instruments of restoration. When you comfort someone in pain, you're not just being kind, you're transmitting divine light. Healing doesn't always come through miracles. Sometimes it comes through presence. When your heart aligns with God's love, your very energy becomes therapeutic. However, every healer must also learn to protect their own spirit. The world's pain can be heavy, and if you absorb too much of it, your own light may flicker. That's why prayer, solitude, and worship are not luxuries. They are spiritual maintenance. You cannot pour from an empty vessel. Even Jesus withdrew to pray before ministering again, Luke 5:16. In silence, God refills what the world drains. Never underestimate how your kindness changes destinies. A smile, a word, a prayer, these are seeds of light that heaven multiplies. You might never see the harvest, but the impact ripples eternally. You are the vessel God uses to remind humanity that love still lives. Dizzy, comment and reflect. Have you ever seen someone's spirit lift just by your presence or encouragement? Comment, "My light heals," if this resonates with your journey. Like this video and subscribe to Mirror of the Soul to continue awakening the divine healer within you. Chosen ones often walk through storms that should have destroyed them, yet somehow they survive. That's not coincidence. That's divine protection. You've been in situations where logic said you wouldn't make it, but grace said otherwise. Every time the enemy plotted, heaven countered. Every trap formed against you became a testimony of God's covering. Psalm 91 declares, "He will command his angels concerning you to guard you in all your ways." That promise is your reality. You are surrounded by spiritual guardians who move unseen, intercepting harm, redirecting danger, and whispering intuition into your soul. That gut feeling that saved you wasn't random, it was divine communication. God doesn't always shout. Sometimes, he protects through subtle nudges of the heart. Divine protection doesn't mean life will be free from trouble. It means trouble will never have the final word. The enemy may roar, but he cannot devour what's divinely shielded. When your faith is anchored in God's promises, fear loses its grip. You can walk through the valley of shadows knowing that light walks beside you. There are moments you'll feel invisible, not because God forgot you, but because he's hiding you. When Joseph was sold into slavery, God hid him in Egypt until it was time for his destiny to unfold. Sometimes heaven conceals its treasures from premature exposure. You are one of them. Engagement question. Have you ever looked back at your life and realized you were protected from something you didn't understand at the time? Comment, "God protected me," below and share your testimony to strengthen another soul. Don't forget to like and subscribe to Mirror of the Soul, your sanctuary for divine wisdom and light. When God's light awakens within you, your vision changes, not just what you see, but how you see. The world once looked ordinary. Now you perceive meaning in everything. You see purpose in pain, lessons in loss, and divinity in the smallest details. This is what happens when spiritual eyes open. You begin to view life through the lens of eternity. You start to discern truth beyond appearances. People's energy speaks louder than their words. Environments reveal their hidden vibrations. You feel spiritual alignment like a compass guiding your steps. That's not imagination, that's revelation. You are being trained to navigate by divine insight, not surface reality. But vision requires stewardship. Not everything God shows you is meant to be spoken. Some things are meant to be understood and guarded. True wisdom isn't in seeing, it's in knowing when to act and when to wait. Many chosen ones lose peace because they speak what was meant for silent understanding. Remember, even Jesus told the healed man, "Tell no one, because timing is sacred." Your divine sight allows you to sense spiritual truths others ignore. You'll know when to move, when to stay, and when to protect your peace. That's why discernment is one of your greatest gifts. The more you honor it, the clearer it becomes. Revelation deepens with obedience. Sparkle's reflection. Have you recently noticed your discernment growing stronger, like you can sense what's true before you see it? Comment, "My eyes are open," below if you're walking in divine vision. Like and subscribe to Mirror of the Soul to keep nurturing your spiritual sight and wisdom. Being chosen means feeling the world's pain more deeply than most. You sense heartbreak even in silence. You cry for strangers. You see injustice and feel it like a personal wound. That's not weakness, that's divine empathy. God placed a compassionate heart within you because light cannot heal what it cannot feel. You carry emotional antennas tuned to heaven's frequency. But empathy is a double-edged gift. Without boundaries, it becomes exhaustion. Without prayer, it becomes sorrow. You must learn to love without absorbing, to care without carrying. Even Jesus, the embodiment of compassion, withdrew often to be alone with the Father, because spiritual sensitivity demands rest and restoration. Sometimes your empathy will make you misunderstood. People may call you too emotional, but they don't realize your tears are intercession. Your compassion moves heaven. Every time you pray for others, angels move. You're not weak for caring, you're strong for enduring the emotional weight of divine awareness. When you cry for others, heaven counts those tears as ministry. God sees your silent sacrifices, the energy you pour into helping, healing, and holding others up. Your empathy is a sacred mirror reflecting His own heart. The world needs your sensitivity because it reminds humanity that love still has a pulse. There comes a moment in every chosen one's awakening when humility must meet authority. You've carried pain, endured rejection, learned compassion. Now it's time to rise. God didn't give you His light to stay hidden. He gave it so you could lead. Not in arrogance, but in divine confidence. True authority is born in the wilderness, after trials, tears, and transformation. You've learned that power without purity destroys, but purity with power transforms. The authority of a chosen one isn't in titles or status, it's in alignment. When your spirit aligns with God's will, creation responds. Doors open, mountains move, and favor follows. You stop begging and start commanding in faith. The atmosphere listens when you speak from divine conviction. Think of Moses before Pharaoh, once timid, now unstoppable. The same spirit that empowered him dwells within you. Authority means you stop identifying with weakness and start walking in divine identity. You're not a victim of your circumstances. You're a vessel of God's dominion on earth. When you speak light into darkness, darkness obeys. But divine authority is never self-serving. It's meant to uplift, to protect, to liberate others. You lead by example, not ego. Your life becomes a demonstration of heaven's order, strength wrapped in gentleness, courage wrapped in humility. You are heaven's ambassador in human form. Resilience isn't the absence of pain, it's the decision to rise through it. Every chosen one knows this intimately. You've fallen, wept, questioned, and broken, yet somehow you still stand. That's not ordinary strength, that's resurrection power. The same spirit that raised Christ from the dead keeps raising you again and again. God doesn't remove every storm. He teaches you to sail through it with faith as your anchor. Resilience is spiritual muscle memory. Every trial trained your soul to trust. Every setback strengthened your character. You're not who you were a year ago. You're wiser, calmer, and stronger in spirit. You now understand that peace isn't found in the absence of storms, but in the presence of God within them. That's divine maturity, when what once broke you now builds you. Every resilient soul becomes a light for others who are still learning to stand. People watch how you respond to life's battles. Your endurance inspires them to believe that faith still works. The Bible says, "Though the righteous fall 7 times, they rise again." Proverbs 24:16. Your rising is your sermon, a living parable that heaven uses to teach hope. And every time you rise, heaven applauds. God whispers, "That's my child." You don't have to roar to prove your strength. Your quiet persistence speaks louder than noise. Resilience is worship in motion. Sometimes you wonder, does anyone even see my effort? Does heaven notice the battles I fight in silence? The answer is yes, heaven sees everything. Every act of kindness, every tear shed in prayer, every choice to forgive instead of retaliate, it's all recorded in eternity. The world may overlook you, but heaven is taking notes. God's recognition doesn't always appear in applause. Sometimes it comes in peace. That unexplainable calm after prayer, that divine confirmation through a stranger's words, that sudden breakthrough when you least expect it, that's heaven saying, "I see you." Every moment of faith is acknowledged, even when unseen. The angels rejoice over your perseverance. You must understand, visibility is not validation. Some of God's greatest warriors work quietly in the shadows. They heal without recognition, love without reward, and serve without spotlight. Heaven values obedience over performance. You may not be trending on earth, but your name is celebrated in heaven. When God recognizes you, He elevates you in ways no human can block. The favor of heaven is unstoppable. People may doubt you, but divine timing will reveal you. You are not forgotten. You are being prepared for divine unveiling. The light you carry is about to be seen by those who once underestimated it. Dizzy engagement prompt. Have you ever received a quiet sign that reminded you God hadn't forgotten you? Share your story in the comments. Encourage others who feel unseen. And if you haven't already, subscribe to Mirror of the Soul, a community where heaven's hidden ones are celebrated and restored. We are living in a time where darkness seems louder than ever, but that's because light is multiplying. Around the world, chosen ones are awakening. They're rising in truth, compassion, and divine awareness. You are part of this global movement, a generation called not just to believe, but to embody God's presence on earth. This awakening isn't confined to churches or temples. It's happening in homes, streets, schools, and hearts. Souls are rediscovering purpose, empathy, and faith. The world is shifting spiritually, and every chosen one contributes to that change. You might think your light is small, but together, our lights form a network that pierces the darkness. One prayer can change a city. One voice can ignite nations. God's Spirit is awakening creativity, courage, and compassion across the world. Prophets are rising from unexpected places. Healers, teachers, and peacemakers are remembering who they are. Every awakened soul becomes part of God's plan to heal humanity. You are not just part of the awakening, you are the awakening. So when you pray, know that millions of other lights are praying too. When you forgive, others forgive. When you love, heaven multiplies that love. Together, we are fulfilling prophecy, the rise of divine light across the earth. To carry God's light means to live as a vessel, open, humble, and surrendered. Grace flows through you not because you're perfect, but because you're available. The Holy Spirit doesn't seek flawless people, He seeks willing ones. Every time you say, "Use me, Lord," heaven responds. You become a conduit for miracles, compassion, and divine alignment. Living as a vessel requires sensitivity, knowing when to speak and when to listen, when to act and when to wait. It's the art of flowing with divine rhythm rather than forcing outcomes. When you move by grace, your steps become ordered. You stop chasing validation and start walking in assignment. People feel the authenticity of your spirit. That's what draws them to your light. But being a vessel also means constant cleansing. You cannot carry resentment and revelation in the same heart. Grace thrives in purity. Forgiveness becomes your filter, prayer becomes your protection, and love becomes your language. As you stay connected to God, His power flows freely through you, healing, uplifting, and inspiring others. Your life, chosen one, is a living sermon. You are not just speaking about grace, you're embodying it. Even in your flaws, God shines. Even in your uncertainty, He guides. You are proof that grace is real, that light overcomes, that love never fails. Herb reflection. Do you feel God using your life to impact others, even in small ways? Comment, I am a vessel of grace, to affirm your calling. Like this message and subscribe to Mirror of the Soul for weekly inspiration that keeps your vessel overflowing with divine love. Chosen one, the time has come to remember who you truly are. You are not a mistake, not a burden, not forgotten. You are light wrapped in human form. From the beginning, God placed His essence within you. That's why life has never felt ordinary, because your soul is. You were born to illuminate, to guide, to awaken, to remind others that heaven still speaks through hearts that listen. Your journey wasn't easy, but it was necessary. The pain taught you empathy, the rejection taught you strength, the silence taught you discernment. Every chapter was written by divine design. And now you stand on the edge of revelation, realizing that the very things that broke you were the things that built you. You've become the lighthouse God always intended. The world doesn't need more noise, it needs more light. And that light is you. Every time you choose love over hate, truth over fear, compassion over judgment, you fulfill your divine mission. Don't hide what God has placed within you. Don't dim to make others comfortable. Shine until others remember their own light through yours. Let this be your declaration. I am God's light in the world. Carry it boldly, humbly, and faithfully. You are heaven's answer to earth's confusion. You are walking proof that divine power lives in human form. And as long as you keep shining, darkness can never win. If this message touched your soul, comment, I carry God's light below, and let heaven see your faith in motion. Like this video, share it with another chosen one, and subscribe to Mirror of the Soul, where divine messages, spiritual awakening, and heavenly wisdom meet to remind you of who you truly are. Because this isn't the end of your story, it's the beginning of your revelation. Keep shining, chosen one. The world is waiting for your light glowing.